Hi, my name's Rebekah Undersander, and I own Providing Pawsable, and I'm the head trainer.
And I'm Michael Undersander. I'm her head volunteer.
So I went to college and I was majoring in biochemistry, and pre-vet was my main goal. I wanted to go work in Africa, work with the cheetahs and wildcats. Unfortunately, my freshman summer, I didn't get officially diagnosed, but they had a feeling that I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. I ended up in the ER just in so much pain just from standing there. So to go from playing softball in college, being on varsity, to not even being able to stand without crying was just a complete shock, and I didn't understand what was going on. So I ended up getting diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well as fibromyalgia, and then I ended up having 4 different leg surgeries while in college. They broke my femur and tibia in both my legs to realign them, and then I ended up rejecting hardware out of both of my ankles. So during the recovery of my first surgery, they decided to test me for something called POTS, which is post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And basically what that means is I'm at risk for passing out. If I stand too long or if I stand up too quickly, any kind of change of position too quickly can cause me to become unconscious. And after that diagnosis, I was feeling really lost, and like I didn't know what my life had become, what I was going to do. I knew I couldn't really become a vet anymore. So I began to look to animals because that's what I've done all my life. I've been involved with animals all my life, and I thought, well, how can they help? So I ended up adopting my first service dog together from our local humane society. Zoe was a 3-year-old coonhound, and I began training her myself because I had already had experience with training hunting dogs growing up. But what I ended up finding is that when I found something I wasn't confident in training, and I looked to find help, most dog trainers didn't train for service work, and those who did train for service work, if you weren't in their program, they didn't help you. So it really felt like this gap in the industry where people couldn't train their own service dogs. And most program dogs normally range from $20,000 to $60,000. So a disabled individual who's already paying for, medical expenses and prescriptions normally can't afford that. So I thought, well, how can I make service dogs more affordable and accessible? So I started Providing Pawsable, and I basically just did that. I wanted to make owner handlers more capable of training their own dogs. So I help guide them from beginning to end. If they come to me before they even have a dog, I can help them find a reputable breeder that does health testing and titling and has previously produced service dogs to increase their success. But then from there, I work through Skype sessions, in-person sessions, or board and trains, which is where the dog comes and stays with me for normally 4 weeks at a time. And we just do like a jump start in their training. Normally this is used for when people are on vacation and they don't want their dog's progress to stop, or if their disability is preventing them from training something specific, that's where I can step in and kind of help them. But mainly my goal is to increase their bond, keep the dog in their home from day one, and just help them have that success in training their own service dog. Yeah, so after training my first service dog, I was dating my husband at the time, and he'd always wanted a diabetic alert dog. He's a type 1 diabetic. So I was like, well, let's do that. So I started training his own dog, and Bailey, his retired diabetic alert dog. So she is able to alert to low blood sugar and high blood sugar. in the peak of her training, she was actually able to determine between a blood sugar of 82 and 79. So that's
79 being low and 82 being normal.
Yeah, so she would only alert to the 79. And, I talk about that their lack of alerts is almost as important as their alerts, because if they're alerting falsely, you begin not to believe them. So making sure that they're extremely accurate on yes and no is so important. So that's what I specialize in, actually, is medical alert dogs, whether that's diabetic alert, migraine alert, seizure alert, or fainting alert as well. But then my next client was another college student who actually had an emotional support animal, and she didn't feel like they were doing enough. She thought they could do some more, so we sat down and talked about how a service dog and actually training them to perform tasks to aid in her disability would benefit her. So that's what we started training, and then from there I did a competition actually similar to the one we just did for the grant to win potentially $10,000 to open my company through my college. So I competed and kind of presented the idea through 3 different rounds of competition, and ended up winning $9,000 to start my company. And I always say that was just enough to give me the confidence to try. So after that, we moved to Cuyahoga Falls after we got married, and I started getting a client base there. I had a lot of clients through Instagram as I was sharing videos of the dogs I was training for myself or for someone local. So we actually serve nationwide. One of the dogs that's staying with us is her handler is in California. So we have had board and trains from Arkansas, Alabama, different places like that just come to work with us in our owner-handler program. So,
but, really your client base stemmed from like social media and word of mouth.
Yeah.
was basically what it was. The service dog community on social media is a pretty tight-knit group, so once you're in it, people talk about you, they'll come from all over.
Yeah, so we don't do board and trains or full program dogs that often, but like I said, sometimes when the disability is going to interfere with the training of the dog, whether it's anxiety and therefore they cannot go out and work in public, so that's something we can help them with. But mainly there's 4 stages of learning in a dog. There's acquisition, which is where they acquire the knowledge of what you're asking. Fluency, which is 80% of the time that you ask it, they do it in the environment you taught it. But then there's generalization. That's the big one. You want to generalize that anywhere and everywhere, and for dogs that are training with us that aren't with their people at the time, anyone. So when I hand the leash off and someone asks them to do something, they should be able to do it for that person. So that's a big thing for like Yo-Yo, who is going to his forever handler this year, is we're going to start generalizing with different people in the community working him so that he gets used to, as soon as I hand him over to Jen, he's happy to go and work for somebody else.
Well, and a lot of your out-of-state clients are virtual too.
Yeah, I do a lot of virtual training because my goal is really to train the person, to train their dog, not train the dog. Because the reality is, even when I'm working with pet clients or service dog clients that stay here or are local, if I go there and let's say I go every week and they're not putting any work in the other 6 days of the week, we're not going to see progress. So my goal is to give them the confidence and the ability to move forward with their own dog and be able to recognize problems and problem solve them moving forward. So my goal is to give them those tools to do that. Yeah, so a lot of programs are fully trained dogs. So you don't even normally know that you're partnered with a dog until they're 1.5 years old to 2 years. And then a lot of them will do a transition training where you come to their facility and stay for like 2 weeks or so and get used to the dog. But that's the process, is you put in an application and then you wait to hear if you're approved, and then you wait to hear if you're partnered with a dog. You don't really get to meet your dog or do anything with your dog until they're ready to come home. So I really wanted to keep the dogs in the home and help people have access to that help sooner, because a lot of dogs aren't fully trained until they're 1.5 years, 2 years old, but that doesn't mean they can't be providing assistance. So my service dog probably provided her first task at 12 weeks old. And it got more and more consistent, more and more that I didn't have to help her task, but there's no reason that an individual should be losing out on that help until they're 1.5 years or 2 years old. And then the money is a big thing. You know, a program dog can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000, and like I said, most people don't have that. Yes, you can fundraise. Some programs are, you know, blessed to have donations and can reduce the cost, but the reality is that for most people on disability or low income, the regular sessions of weekly, monthly are a lot easier to afford and to account for than, you know, a big lump sum at the end of training. Right now, we're able to keep up with what people are requesting because it is that one-on-one session, not having, 12 dogs in our home. Our board and trains are pretty limited because we do it in home. Each of our dogs come to us are treated like family, like our own dogs. So if we were to have 12 dogs, you can see how that wouldn't be happening. So that's the one I would say we sometimes get a wait list for, is our board and train. But as far as in-person Skype sessions, we're pretty much able to keep up with it. Our prospect finding has started to get a wait list, which is where I help you find a puppy, and that's where I really got the motivation to start my breeding program and making sure that we have more access to reliable service prospects. So for service work, you have certain breeds that are more inclined to success. That doesn't mean you won't see certain breeds out there that aren't in the Fab 4 that are being successful, but the Fab 4 have certain traits that are going to make more of the general population of the breed successful for service work. So you have Labs, Goldens, and Poodles as your top 3 that are normally recommended, and then your 4th can kind of switch back and forth between German Shepherds and Collies. We ended up choosing Poodles for our breeding program just because of their overall versatility. They have great drive. They have an incredible nose for medical alert. They want to be by your side. We consider them Velcro dogs, so they want to be working with you. They want to please you, and they're extremely intelligent. They're considered the second most intelligent breed overall. And then also the fact that they're hypoallergenic. So we'll be able to serve more people with this breed than if we were to choose Goldens or something like that, where we couldn't cater to someone with allergies. So for breeding, we talk about health and temperament as your number 2, top 2 things to worry about. So we want to do more than say our dogs are healthy. We want to prove it. We test all of our dogs past SHIC, which is your Canine Health Information Center. They put out a recommendation for each breed of what health testing should be a minimum. So for my breed, it's eyes, hips, and then an elective. But we actually test our dogs on pen hip and OFA hip, OFA elbow, eyes, cardiac, and all of genetic markers for poodles, as well as their diversity, so making sure that we're not creating a bottleneck effect within the breed. So that's what all of our breeding program dogs must do before they're even considered ready to breed. And then on top of that is temperament. So we want to make sure that our dogs have a working temperament, a desire to please, and neutrality around other dogs and people, because that's what makes a successful service dog. So we actually go ahead and do titling with our dogs as well. So we do conformation, which is dog shows, and we find those really important because they talk about the structure of your dog. How balanced are they? How are they going to be able to work based on how their bone structure is? And then we do other sports such as dock diving, fast cat, barn hunt. All of these not only just get your dog used to working with the person, but also get them around other dogs and create that neutrality, making sure that they're able to work around other dogs like they may have to in service work. So we expect our dogs to be titled quite extensively before breeding. Our first breeding dog, Quill, is actually a versatility certificate master, which means she has 2 different championships, as well as, I believe, 20 points within different categories. So she's currently almost 2 years old, just under 2 years old, and she has 23 titles total. So she's definitely gone out and proved herself and made sure that she is of breeding quality. She was the number 1 poodle for novice barn hunt in 2021, the number 2 dog in all of Ohio for novice barn hunt, and the number 18 dog, I believe, for the nation of any breed. And then this year she was the number 5 distance jumper for dock diving and poodles in the nation. Yeah, she jumps 22 feet off the dock currently, and there's 3 different kind of sports within dock diving. You have distance jump, which is where you throw the toy and they jump as far as they can and they get measured by the base of their tail. And then you have air retrieve, which is where the bumper is already out there hanging in the air. She just started that. She got a 13-foot jump successfully. So we're excited to see what she does with that next year. And then hydro dash, which is where it's kind of a timed sport. So they jump and swim to the bumper and back, and they get timed on how fast they do that.
She's definitely the source of knowledge for everything, but I love learning along with the process, and because again, I want to be part of everything too, and so especially now that I just got my first poodle puppy, it's all a lot more exciting from that standpoint, that it's actually it's applying to me a lot more, so
Yeah.
it's fun to go through that process with her, since she's also going to be a breeding dog, and start working on her titles and her sports and all of that. But
she's already earned 2 titles at 5 months old. So
yep, and that's what and so I guess the one big difference is, again, she has most of the training knowledge, so I'm picking it up as I learn from her, but she does more of the service dog training and the pet training with other clients and such. I help a lot more with the board and train dogs, as far as whether it's just getting them out before I go to work, or playing with them, or helping them get socialized to our dogs and do some of their at-home training.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I'm a lot more involved in the board and train at home side of the business, where she is much more on the side of and again, she does it all, but I am more involved at home, and she does pretty much all of the client communication and one-on-one sessions. She pretty much does that all by herself.
Well, and I would say like the day-to-day stuff, like I don't have to worry about necessarily feeding or watering or taking dogs out all the time, because he's doing that, and I wouldn't be able to do everything else that I do if he wasn't, because I do my own website, my own social media, so without him or without Faith, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. We wouldn't be able to compete without Faith, because a lot of times it's almost impossible to bring 6 dogs with you. So Faith is amazing in letting us be able to leave and go and compete our dogs and do the best we can with our dogs, because we know that they're well taken care of here, whether it's our own dogs or our client dogs. She does an incredible job with them. So.